Welcome to the Week 4 Interactive Lecture Supplement. Process Analysis. Kim's note. George, would you help me? I promised my grandmother I'd record a program for her, and I can't remember how to use the DVR. Sheila exclaimed over the phone to George as the time for the start of the program loomed ever closer. Realizing Sheila was stressed about letting her grandma down, even though he had explained this process to her several times before, George decided he would talk her through the process this one last time. But then he was going to write the steps down for her so she could reference them in the future. Click the sticky notes to learn more. What is process analysis writing? Process analysis consists of explaining step by step how to accomplish an end result. Remember, academic essays must be written in proper sentence format, so these steps must be written in complete sentences. When George writes his process analysis for Sheila, in order to follow an academic format, he could perhaps start with a paragraph that explains why he is writing out the process steps, followed by a paragraph that explains the steps for Sheila to follow. The steps I have to follow in order to record on my DVR aren't difficult, but I can never seem to remember them when I need them. Let me think. What should be the first step in my process analysis? Process analysis must include every step necessary to complete our end result. No step can be left out, or the reader will not be able to accomplish the task. It is always a good idea to warn the reader if a step is extremely difficult. Processes often include steps that are easy for us to do, but difficult to remember, so we must be vigilant to write everything down. Make sure to do the same questioning Tom is doing to come up with steps for the process analysis essay. Don't forget, practice writing a process analysis just like Kim did. Include every step required, start to finish, and warn your readers if any particular step is especially important or difficult to accomplish. Make sure to follow all the grammar and spelling rules because your steps must be written in complete sentences. Narration. To impart a lesson or central point through a story or stories. Audience wants a conflict with which to identify. Enjoy colorful yet meaningful details that lend to the story. Disdains rambling. So these are the rules or the basics of narration in which you tell a story that proves a central point or a moral. And so you can use dialogue in your narration because dialogue is used to reveal character, it moves the plot, it's effective to show you what the character is thinking, and it's a good way to inform the reader about background events. Some rules about dialogue. Place quotation marks around the words. Start a new paragraph when a different character speaks. Make it realistic. Slangs and errors in grammar and punctuation should be kept. So in dialogue is the only place where it's okay to have grammar mistakes and slang because you're showing the reader how the speaker speaks English. Make it clear to your reader who is speaking at all times. Accompany dialogue tags with a comma. Listing, developing narration through pre-writing. Listing may be used to identify events. Free writing may be effective for developing events. So when you do listing, you list everything you know about, whatever it is you're writing about. Free writing is when you sit down and you just write a whole bunch of paragraphs or sentences about what you know about that topic. Developing narration through revision. Create a scratch outline of a free write so that you can better see the unity and organization. Share your text with a peer for constructive feedback. So basically what they're saying is create an outline in which you write down the important ideas and the less important ideas. Write down your thesis statement, write down your topic sentences, and your subpoints. This is very similar to the week 2 worksheet that you had to do for the week 2 pre-writing assignment. Then share your text with a peer. And so this means that when we have our week 5, 7, 9, 11 forums, those are all peer review forums where everybody's going to look at each other's paper for constructive feedback. Sentence structure. Can I write a sentence without a subject? Well, during conversation it should be okay, but I don't know about writing. Sentence structure is very important in college writing and professional writing. And no, Tom, you cannot write a sentence without a subject, not in written English. Every sentence must contain 2 basic parts, a subject and a predicate. Subjects. The subject of a sentence can be a person, place, or thing. Simple subject. The pronoun or noun that names what the sentence is about. Example, the dog is barking. Complete subject. A complete subject is the simple subject plus its modifier. Example, the mangy old dog is barking. Predicate. Predicate indicates what the subject does, what happens to the subject, or what is said about the subject. Simple predicate. The main verb along with its helping verbs. Example, Mia is helping her mom in the kitchen. And so a simple predicate is just simply the words is helping. A complete predicate is the simple predicate plus its modifier. And so a complete predicate is all the words after the subject. And so here a complete predicate is singing on the stage for the first time. This whole thing is a simple predicate, a complete predicate with its modifier. A compound predicate is just like a compound verb. It means that you have 2 predicates about the same subject. Jason lives in China and speaks Mandarin. A direct object. Usually a direct object comes right after the verb. So a direct object is a noun or pronoun that receives the action of a verb. Example, John loves traveling to Europe. So that the words traveling to Europe is a direct object because it comes directly after the verb. An indirect object, a noun or pronoun that names the person or thing to whom or for whom something is done. So the man on a bench tossed the pigeons some crumbs. And so here, the man on the bench tossed, or you could say the man on the bench tossed some crumbs to the pigeons. And so the pigeons, in correct English, does not come directly after the verb. That's why it's called an indirect object. Okay, so in this sentence, you have a slang. He said tossed the pigeons some crumbs, whereas correct English, the man on a bench tossed some crumbs to the pigeons. And so since to the pigeons is the second bunch of nouns after the verb, then it is an indirect object. Phrases. Phrases is a group of related words that lack a subject, a predicate, or both, and it cannot stand alone as a sentence. So a phrase is something that doesn't have a subject or a predicate. Therefore, go to bed is considered a phrase. Prepositional phrases like at the store or in the drawer is also a phrase because in the drawer or at the store does not have a subject, it does not have a predicate. Clauses. A clause is a group of words that contain a subject and a predicate. And so you have 2 kinds of clauses in English. You have an independent clause. An independent clause is a complete sentence. It means that it can stand alone by itself. My sister is brilliant at puzzles. That is an independent clause because it can stand alone. And if I have who has autism, that's a dependent clause because a dependent clause cannot stand alone as a complete sentence because it has a relative clause or a subordinating conjunction that starts it. So in this sentence, my sister is brilliant at puzzles. That is an independent clause. Who has autism is a dependent clause. And so even though a dependent clause has a subject and a predicate, but it cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. So an example of a dependent clause is when the puppies were born. So that is a dependent clause. The owner examined them carefully. That's an independent clause. And when you put a dependent clause and an independent clause together as one sentence, that's known as a complex sentence. That's the end of the week 4 interactive lecture. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.